All right, welcome everyone. Here we are again with Garuda Prabhu. And it was about 2 months ago when we had our interview with you, Garuda, I think back before Christmas. And you gave us a lot of information about the book changes issue, what's going on with BBT and all these kind of things. And it generated quite a bit of interest globally, quite a bit of interest. And we got letters from people asking, is there an update, this and that. And so I'm really happy to be with you again this morning and ask you for that update. Has anything transpired since our last meeting or whatever? I just want to turn over the microphone to you and let you give us an update on what's happening. And one question we had, which I just want to state it before you get going, is a lot of people were interested about the conference, because we mentioned that there was going to be a conference, and I think that was in 2020. It was going to be an academic conference. But those of us outside the academic circle, we don't know, well, what does that mean, and why should academics be even interested in this, or what's its purpose, or who's going to attend it? So if you can get around to telling us about that in the course of updates, etc., that will be much appreciated. So I welcome Garuda Prabhu and give you the floor. Garuda, please enlighten us.
Okay, thank you. Wow. Thank you, Swamiji. Pranams to you, wow. And thank you for the opportunity. Let us begin with some quick updates. I have to give a little bit of a qualification here. I have to remain a little bit vague because things are going on and I want to respect the parties that are currently involved. So I can't be terribly specific, but I think in general, Swamiji, I think some good things are happening.
Nice.
I'm cautiously optimistic. Okay? So one of the things that I have been doing is keeping active a connection with a couple of BBT directors. One of whom I've been really connecting with wonderfully, and I consider him very intelligent, thoughtful, open, and very much willing to dialogue with me. Now, I've not gotten that from plenty of other parties.
Are you at liberty to tell us who that mysterious someone is, or that's...
I'm going to wait now until I get his permission. Only just out of respect, I want to, because good things are happening. So I want to preserve that connection. And in fact, I'll tell you how good it is. Again, in somewhat vague terms, but I think you'll get a picture. He suggested prior to any academic meeting, in fact, he was questioning the academic meeting that you correctly said is supposed to occur a year from now, February of 2020. I like to think of it as 2020 vision on the subject. So I like to play with that a little bit. But the main thing is this, Swamiji. He's frankly a little nervous about that meeting, or maybe not nervous, just he doesn't see the usefulness of it. How could people outside the movement comment on what's going on inside the movement, and so on? Well, that's a misconception of what the academic meeting is about. We can get to that a little later. But what came out of this was, why don't we have a devotee meeting? Why don't we bring together devotees who are truly qualified and thoughtful and dispassionately capable of talking about the various angles of the issue? Now, of course, this thrilled me. I'm all for dialogue. The problem is I've been cut off from dialogue from both Jayadvaita Swami and Dravida Prabhu. Persons with whom I consider myself, reasonably good friends, especially Jayadvaita Swami. I still have great affection for him and love for him, but that doesn't mean that my expectations for preserving Prabhupada's books would be compromised at the cost of such affection. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the movement there's been the habit in the past that because you have affection for someone, you have to hold his views on things, whether they're correct or incorrect. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that's fair to the person
Mm-hmm.
or the issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to move along, despite the fact that I've been pushed away by mainly Jayadvaita Swami, despite my continuous invitations to speak publicly or privately.
Mm-hmm.
His refusals to me don't even come directly to me. They
Mm-hmm.
come through a god brother
Mm-hmm.
with whom he's willing to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an unexpected emotional reaction because all I want to do is to appreciate the good work that he has done, and perhaps the work that's questioned, we can move on. I'm not into a slander campaign at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's the issue I'm looking at, not the persons.
Right.
But he's taking it very personally. So he's looking at it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so moving along here, this BBT connection I have is really willing to look at this
Mm-hmm.
from different angles and considerations.
Mm-hmm.
And he suggested that we put together perhaps 5 to 7 devotees who are very qualified. I came up with a list of 4 others, and he came up with 1. Mm. And the 4 others have PhDs, and they're extremely, good standing devotees.
Mm.
They're very committed. They're more committed than I am. They're really very exalted devotees, and they also are willing to suspend judgment of their own until they have reviewed all angles, as many angles as possible on the issue. So that's a scholarly way of looking at things. So we're combining the devotional commitment, the devotional commitment to Prabhupada's lotus feet, and the devotional commitment to ISKCON. And, I know that, you have an arm's length from ISKCON, and I respect that, Swamiji. Mm-hmm. But I actually am, I'm an independent, but my institution is ISKCON. I go into ISKCON. I go to temples. I love being with the devotees at the temples and so on. But these devotees are very committed, loyal devotees, perhaps more loyal to the GBC than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so on.
I think that's a very good approach.
I think it is, and it was his idea, and we agreed on the list, and we will come together maybe in 6 months before the academic meeting. Mm-hmm. And what is good about this, Swamiji, is if something can really get done here, I would be proud to bring that to the academic meeting and say, look how there are some devotees who are thoughtful, who are mature, who are really acting as extraordinarily dedicated disciples of Prabhupada's wishes and instructions on how to proceed with editing, aligning the professional, ethical, devotional and theological standards with Prabhupada's instructions. Mm-hmm. So I have to say, Swamiji, I'm a little excited that something could get done here.
Nice. That's, I think everyone will be happy to hear that.
Well, that's why
there are definitely extremities. And just for the record, I'm not on one of those extremities.
Right.
Even this morning, someone sent me a couple links to websites, and in the first sentence there was name calling, calling the editors low lifes and such, and that's not where I'm at all on this. But it is a serious question, and in my library, you will only find the original books of His Divine Grace, and I do that without name calling. But
Right.
it is a big issue for people, and it's a big issue going forward. So, yeah.
It is, Swamiji. It is. And as far as the name calling and the extreme judgmentalisms that have gone on, and when I say extremes, I mean not only the editors were sent their devils from hell come to destroy the movement. I mean outrageous things. To the other side, though, there's the other extreme. They are pure devotees. They are very chaste. They've been so committed to Prabhupada's lotus feet they can do no wrong. And I say each of those statements are equal. You're judging the person without the ability to actually, honestly, and truly judge that person.
Well,
so
let me inject a question here. I have to.
Yeah.
But in this, you said, okay, you had let's call it right wing and left wing, right?
Okay.
Where does Srila Prabhupada stand in all of this? Mm-hmm. He seems to have spoken quite clearly about editing.
Yes.
And so that seems to be, the counterbalance to all these things seems to be come as close and as accurate to what he has requested.
Yes.
Or not requested, instructed. It's instruction, isn't it? I mean.
Exactly. Well, there are two things here. As you just said, there are his collected instructions, and they're not that many. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's a letter to Rupanuga Prabhu.
Yeah.
That makes it very clear. I quote that endlessly because the formula, the methodology for editing is described therein. But then there are anyone who knows how complicated editing is and English grammar and then of course as someone coming into the English language as a second tongue, not the mother tongue, and then of course working with translations and working with the Sanskrit language in translation in English. So these are very delicate. These are some subtle points. But here's the point. The other side of this is not just Prabhupada's instructions. It's Prabhupada's authority. Authority.
Yes.
Prabhupada is the author. Swamiji, if I die tomorrow, and you know me pretty well, you know some of the books I've done and so on, if somehow you convince my wife to give you my hard drive, and you look back and say, well, I've read Garuda's book published by Princeton, Dance of Divine Love, but I went back and saw earlier drafts. And some of these earlier drafts are better than what he wrote in the book. I'm going to come out with a second edition. Because I believe this is what Garuda really would have wanted were he not influenced by, his wife or his, friend or whatever. I swear, Swamiji.
Can I do that?
I would haunt you in the grave, from the grave.
From the grave.
For eternity. Yes, I would. Because even if you made the book better, you don't have the right and you don't have the authority. Even though you're in a higher ashram or I don't care who you are, the author is the authority of that work. No one has a right to change that work.
If I can interject here just a short
Please.
one,
Yeah.
When I hear and when I see this in its present state, well, in my own studies in the last few years, I've done a lot of research on the history of Christianity. And we're just in the first kilometer of that history.
Yeah.
There are so many editions and editions and editions and editions of the Bible that the King James Version today isn't even recognizable as a Bible from 1,000 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So many things have been taken out and so many things have been put in. And the information I have is from scholars, and they say that the two aren't even in this. They're not on the same shelf anymore. They're so different. So when you start down this road of changing and editing, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Where does it go over time?
Yeah. This is a really good point. Really good point, Swamiji. Here's the thing. I believe that Jayadvaita Brahmachari, back in the day when he started, and today Swami, I believe that he did the best he knew how to do. Mm-hmm. But the problem is he made certain a priori assumptions that he really had no right to make. Uh-huh. What Prabhupada ordered under his physical presence with Hayagriva or with Satsvarup or with Jayadvaita himself, that's one thing. When Prabhupada signs off on that work, that's one thing. But to go back, when Prabhupada never requested a second edition, never requested such major editing, it's just crossing over the moral rights of an author, of any author. And add to that, this is our spiritual master. Mm-hmm. Your spiritual master, mm-hmm. My spiritual master. The approach to anything of the spiritual master is done in great submission. Correct me if I'm wrong, Swamiji, but this is my understanding.
Absolutely correct.
Yes. And how many places does Prabhupada say throughout his books, the spiritual master is not an ordinary person?
Many times.
Many, many, many times. And so you can't treat these books like regular books that you go back into and edit, although you wouldn't do that even with an ordinary author. What to speak of Prabhupada as an author?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So these are part of the issues.
Well, I have seen some of the things, and I haven't, joined in the fight, so to speak, but I have been shown some edits that they're way beyond edits. It changes the understanding. It changes the philosophy. There's leanings towards society consciousness as superior to Krishna consciousness, like state institution type of a thing. Or
that's right.
There's just a lot of very, very subtle things which make a big difference for people trying to go deeper, or as I say, in the long run. Like, whose Shakespeare do you study when you study Shakespeare? Some 21st century modern Webster's English version of Shakespeare, or do you read the thee, thou, and all those? If you want to know Shakespeare, you have to read Shakespeare of the century.
Right, that's right.
Not 5 centuries later or whatever it's been.
Right, and when the example that you give of Shakespeare is interesting. Yes, preserve the original Shakespeare, but then you can have an annotated Shakespeare that explain that what that meant in that day is this. In fact, there's a nice series called No Fear Shakespeare. And so, and on the verso page, it has a kind of an up-to-date colloquial understanding of what it would mean or say. But on the recto page, it would have the original, untouched, not touched. Mm-hmm. And, I know that Dravida has changed things because it didn't make sense to him. And as much as I respect Dravida, I resent the fact that someone is forcing me to look through his brain to understand Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. I really think I have a decent brain that I can use.
Better than average.
I don't need his.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the way probably most of us feel, and even more so the second generation who kind of they want to know what we got. They want the same thing that made the great Hare Krishna movement, made Krishna a household word, and was distributed in millions and millions of volumes and copies to everybody around the world. They want the same thing.
Yes.
They don't want anything jaded in any way. They want the same thing also.
Well, that's interesting to hear you say that. because that's a very important consideration. But here's another consideration that's sort of opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm appreciative that many people grew up on the Jayadvaita Gita. They came to the movement on the Jayadvaita Gita. They've been using the Jayadvaita
So
Gita.
that would be what, in the 80s, starting in the 80s or something?
Yes, 83. Mm-hmm.
83. Well,
yes.
a lot of problems in the Hare Krishna movement in the 80s also.
Yes, that is true. Well, there's a lot of problems with the 83 edition.
Uh-huh.
For example, that second edition has been re-edited over and over and over. So there are about 8, could be more, but I've determined there are about 8 different versions of the second revised edition.
Now you're speaking in biblical terms, because they say the same thing about the Bible. There was this such and such Bible, and then a century later this was added, that was taken away, and pretty soon it's just advanced. And I don't think people are looking ahead. Look ahead a century into, is it going to be even the same thing? Well, very questionable.
Exactly. You can change, you can put the Constitution of the United States, for example, in modern English if you want. But that doesn't mean you change the Constitution the way it was originally written. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with 2, but you must preserve and respect the original as that. Mm-hmm. And I'm working right now, Swamiji, I think you should know this is part of the updates. Mm-hmm. I'm working right now with a devotee, with several devotees who are going through Jayadvaita's Bhagavad Gita and looking at his changes and looking at what some of the changes are true copy editing as opposed to content editing. The two have been conflated with Jayadvaita. Mm-hmm. We're trying to separate the copy editing from the content editing. The copy editing is what Prabhupada wanted. Mm-hmm. Content editing was what Prabhupada explicitly said he did not want. He did not want interpolations of style and philosophy. I'm quoting the exact words.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I remember that quote.
Remember that, right?
Right, exactly.
Interpolation of style and philosophy. These are Prabhupada's sacred words, not mine.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we have to take this seriously, Swamiji. We can't just overstep here.
Right. Well, it seems like if, I was in a dialogue with a GBC friend of mine just yesterday on another issue, a very heated issue. And I made the point that, even if you look into the world today, many leaders are so out of touch with the people the people they were elected to lead. For example, say Macron in France, he's so out of touch with the people he leads. He was elected by the people. So whether it's in the political world today or even in religious institutions and spiritual institutions, there just seems to be this cosmic gap between leaders and the people that they're leading and supposed to be protecting, who have put them in those positions, so to speak. In other words, there's a disconnect. It seems like Jayadvaita Maharaj and whoever else, Dravida or whoever's involved there, should listen to what the concern of the devotees.
Yeah,
it's just not people at an arm's length like myself. It's a lot of devotees, in-house devotees. In fact, they're more up in arms about it than the people at an arm's length.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It seems like they have to be made to be aware that, listen, you have to listen to your constituency. What do they call that? Your zone, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not just be on the guru platform, like whatever I say is absolute, and therefore all my disciples will follow it, and everybody. And no, it's a mistake to lead like that and not listen to your men that you're leading.
I agree, because Krishna speaks through the hearts of devotees.
Absolutely.
I told Jayadvaita Swami personally, I said, if no fewer than 10 devotees came to me and seriously criticized a book that I produced on Krishna Bhakti. And I would take it off the market. In other words, it's just you and maybe one other close friend, or two or other, three devotees came to me, even as few as three devotees, maybe. I would have to sit back and say, okay, you know what? I think I had a misconception here. Let me backtrack and then let me do it right. There's nothing wrong in that.
Well, at least you would go, okay, well, let me reconsider. And if you didn't see what the points of objection, let's call them objections, were, then you would come back and say, well, maybe you misunderstand me, and there would be a dialogue.
Okay. Now, to give Jayadvaita Swami credit where credit is due, he has engaged in some of that dialogue. He'll often recite Dear Govinda, who wrote to him twice about a question he had about the editing. One time, this is what Jayadvaita tells me, one time he found it a very reasonable objection, and in fact, he changed it back. Now, here's an example of changing and then changing back, you see, in the second edition.
Okay.
The other time that Dear Govindaji wrote to Jayadvaita Swami, he didn't agree, and so he decided, no, I'm not going to change it. Now, what's interesting about this anecdote is that Jayadvaita is acting as if he's a co-author. He's not. He's merely a copy editor. He has no right to say what should be changed and what should not be changed in Prabhupada's book. Unless he's putting out his own Jayadvaita. I mean, I could do this, Swamiji. I could put out my own Garuda Das edition of Prabhupada's Gita where I feel Prabhupada, could have done this or could have done that, or he did do this in an earlier draft, but that's all speculative.
Sure.
It's not done under the authority of Prabhupada. It's done under my authority. Jayadvaita has conflated author with co-author, editor. That's been his big mistake.
Big mistake there.
He is simply a copy editor. Now, Jayadvaita has never been an author of a book before. He had written BTG articles. He was the editor of BTG. He wrote a book recently, fairly recently, and now he knows what it's like to be the author of a book for which he would never want, and I'm making an assumption here, but for which he would never want anyone to come down later and change. So, for example, he was consulting with me on his book, and I even wrote the foreword to his book. I have earlier drafts of his book. If he were to pass away and I come out, 77 Prabhupada, 72 he published it and never had any objection to 83. If I were to come out 11 years later, even while Jayadvaita was here for 5 years.
So what you're saying is,
he would never allow that.
Right.
He would never agree to that.
What you're saying is what's been done is wrong. And then how to get people to recognize that a mistake has been made and go back to square one and then move forward based on the instructions of Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
That seems to be, and, just to shout in from the peanut gallery, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. This is a noble endeavor, what you're doing, and I think you should take it all the way to the end.
Okay.
But if track record means anything, there have been other issues, not about books, but about persons, about things, whether it was selling the Manhattan building or standing at Gurukul or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow. We have a good track record of good cooperation and understanding and admitting mistakes and going back and really rectifying. It's like the train is moving so fast. It's just destined to go. And what we have now are two sets of books available. There are websites selling the original books from the 70s.
That's right.
Devotees in India have made some beautiful beautiful Bhagavatam edition sets. This
Yes.
beautiful Nectar of Devotion is printed. The
Yeah.
original one. There's, and it's just like, wow. It's just like, now, do you want the edited ones or do you want the original ones? That's what's happening today. February, whatever the date is, 27th, 2019. Their website's selling the originals, and their website's selling the edited, and it's anarchy and it's chaos.
Right. Right.
Another bad print.
Yes. Okay. I love your negative prediction. It fires me up to try to prove you wrong.
I hope you can prove me wrong.
I know you would love it if I were. Now, you see, but I like your challenge because maybe, just maybe, Swamiji, the movement can see the wisdom of maybe we need to do things differently now. And I don't blame you for your prognosis. I don't.
Let's just call it. I'm a pessimist.
You're a pessimist. Okay, that's fine. It's a negative prognosis. I don't blame you because there is a kind of stuckness in all of this. But I do see a glimmer of possible, channel here to, you see, for example, if Jayadvaita's second edition, which is what we have to really call it, is to be sustained, I personally don't, and not everyone agrees with me on this, by the way, Swamiji, but I personally don't have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. If it is properly presented. The note to the second edition, I have done a heavily, stated critique of it. It's been published online and so on. It's the most embarrassing, unprofessional, understated, overstated, misinformation, disrespectful note to the second edition I could ever imagine.
Wow.
It has to be done properly. It has to be honest. What is here? It also has to state that there is an original edition and why devotees might want to read this edition, but why they might not. And it can be just done, and let devotees decide what they want to read and bring it under one umbrella.
Well, that's what's happening on the street, so to speak.
On the street it is.
The devotees are deciding themselves. I know people that have just chucked these edited books and then got the original
gone back
to their shelf, and then the side teams are being the troops are separating them here,
Right, but this is the world of duality. Krishna warns us about that. I have, and you may call me too much of an idealist, Swamiji, and that's fine.
No, I don't say that.
I've been called worse. I won't even mention the things I've been called. But the point is that I would love to see the movement more unified under and with the understanding that these two editions are doing different things. And that Prabhupada's Gita, the way it was printed in 72, with minor copy edited corrections, is the original Gita. That one, yeah, exactly, yeah. Or the
Oh yeah,
the original.
The original. Yeah, you told me how you got that from that professor friend of yours. Yeah, amazing.
Oh no, that was those were the ones Prabhupada printed in India, the original Bhagavatams.
Oh, right.
That's right.
Right.
No, this was the original one that I picked up in 72.
Yep.
Still have it. Yeah. Yeah. So, but it wouldn't be exactly this. It would be a copy edited. Maybe a comma should have been put in that was left out. Maybe there's a misspelling. The opposition always likes to quote the planet of the trees. Okay. Obvious mistakes. Prabhupada said no mistakes, but don't change philosophy or style. So it wouldn't be exactly facsimile, duplicate, but it would be as Prabhupada instructed. And the new introduction to it or some kind of forward to it would explain what this is.
Well,
And
then definitely that is not the task of one or two people. It's just
exactly,
hearing what would be required and knowing the complexity of it. How could such decisions be left to one or two people?
it could never.
No.
Even as even with as much experience as I have, Swamiji,
Mm-hmm.
with editing, peer reviewing for publishers at the top of Oxford and Yale and Princeton and HarperCollins, all of these, I would never be willing to even accept the burden on my shoulders. In the day, though, again, giving Jayadvaita the benefit of the doubt, there was no one else who knew grammar.
Mm.
I asked in front of 100 people in LA, how many of you know what an adverb is? 3 people raised their hands. And I didn't question them to see if they really did know what an adverb
I'm
was.
glad I wasn't there.
I'm not asking you. Okay, so the point is that grammar it's a specialized area. People who are scholars, of course, grammar is to the content of philosophy as bones are to the biological body.
Mm-hmm.
Without bones, you don't have. So people will use grammar without knowing what they're doing, and that's fine. They have a natural sense about writing. There's some extremely talented writers who don't know a bit of grammar. But when you're dealing with philosophy and you're dealing with editorial stuff, you have to be extremely competent in understanding grammar and what is good English.
And I think it's fair to point out that the vocabulary, which is part of grammar, I would assume, but of Srila Prabhupada, he did not use bombastic words that you have to look up
That's right.
in the dictionary. I mean,
that is correct.
It's pretty simple there. So if he said fast, we can assume he meant fast.
Right.
Not something else, you know.
Not expeditious.
Did he mean fast in speed or fast in not eating? You know. So I think it's pretty simple to figure out the grammar and make any adjustments required there, because
That's right.
It's not speaking at any super high level of English.
Right.
Very common English.
Yeah. Right. No, it's pretty straightforward, and I think again, you know, even if we think we can better the English, if Prabhupada's English, or what Hayagriva did with Prabhupada's English under his presence, in his presence, then you leave it as long as it still makes sense, as long as it's good enough English. We're not here to, you know, add flourish and embellishment to Prabhupada's Gita.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, there's one place where the one person going through Prabhupada's Gita was asking me about the relative pronoun in Sanskrit, ye, Y-E. And apparently Hayagriva translates it in the singular. And, you know, and I admitted to him that yeah, there is that is, technically it is plural in Sanskrit. So Jayadvaita changed it to, you know, those who instead of one who. Okay? And while Jayadvaita may be more grammatically correct, there is something in English, a synecdoche, where the singular is more abstract, which can include the many. So, you know, it's permissible, and you don't change that. You see?
Yes, it's like sometimes in writing I say I am going, and I can say we are going. We will. Someone says, "Oh, do you want to go somewhere?" And I say, "Well, we will think about that." But you're just asking me in the singular. But I reply,
That's right.
so, you know, and it really didn't change. The main focus was on think about it.
Exactly.
We will think about it, or I will think about it. So
That's exactly the idea.
It's like the witch hunt. Which or that? You know, the
Right.
that sounds better if you use which or which. You should change to that. And editors have called that, I have heard, the witch hunt. You know, change all witches to that. But it just changes the sound and doesn't change the meaning. But then it could if you made the wrong mistake. You know, if you,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
no,
see,
leave it alone.
yeah. Yes, leave it alone. But when there is a which, then you have a comma to the prior at the end of the prior word, because the which makes it a relative clause. That keeps it in the main clause
Okay.
and does not
There you go.
require a comma. So you see, these are some of the conventions that an editor would understand to know to apply.
Yes. Well, it's always been the case. I mean, you know, you had a magazine and nobody went to journalism school. Nobody went to editor's school. Nobody even read the book Element of Style.
That's right.
Then you
Yeah,
had
that's right.
Gurukul teachers and became teachers, and they never went and studied how to teach.
Right.
You know, all types of things. That's just one of the things that had to be in the Hare Krishna movement. People had
That's
to
right.
take up tasks that they weren't even trained to do. But Srila Prabhupada would say, well, Krishna will guide you. Krishna will help you. You know?
That's right. That's
But
right.
at some point, for example, driving a car, yeah, well, Krishna might help you, but it'd be, you know, you should know where the brake is, the clutch is, where are the gears, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right.
Otherwise, you can be in trouble. So
That's right.
you know.
That's right. But your point, though, about has been my point, which is this should never have been the burden on one editor.
Certainly not.
And I would never accept, even now with all of my experience in publishing and editing and even posthumous editing. I edited Tamal Krishna Goswami's book when he wasn't around. I had to deal with posthumous issues of editing and how to respect the original author. Even with all of that, I would never accept the sole burden. So the whole point of this academic conference, Swamiji,
Yes.
is to bring together devotees with PhDs and non-devotees with PhDs who know the tradition very, very well, and ones who love Prabhupada and what he did. They have great respect for Prabhupada. They would appreciate a disciple's, challenge in this kind of task.
Mm-hmm.
And Prabhupada did greatly respect people with PhDs. He loved the endorsements he got from PhDs. He loved Edward C. Dimmock's foreword to the Gita.
Yes.
That he commented on that. I think I confessed on our last talk that I was the one who got it removed. Remember that?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
That's right. And it was removed because of Tripurari Swami's, at the time, his methods, his cheating methods that he went all over the movement teaching, and it backfired. And it backfired into Dimmock's office with me.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there have been a few incidences like that, not reflecting on Tripurari Maharaj, but different things have happened and blowback. Seemed like the good thing at the time, but then the blowback came later. Well, I have been asked one special thing, and it's always great that, we could sit here the rest of the afternoon.
Yes.
I keep getting messages saying, can you keep these things under an hour, regarding all the different videos that we do make. So so maybe just, kind of give you a timeout now, or could you give us a wrap up in the next, say, 3 to 5 minutes? Just kind of wrap it up for us.
I'll even do it in less.
All right.
Out of respect for some level of brevity, maybe not a total level of brevity, but this academic conference is absolutely important for the movement. It will chasten all of us to be realistic about publishing responsibilities to a great author, a great master of Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada was and is. So we need that academic conference. I will publish the proceedings from that conference, and we're collecting money for it. If anyone out there is able and willing to contribute to it, we have $10,000. We need about another 10, and I have been assured that it will come one way or another. But perhaps participate if any of you out there are willing to and able to. It's going to happen no matter what happens in that interim meeting that the BBT would like to have. I would love to come to that meeting with the academics and show how well we've worked together. Ideally, that's what, and I'd like to prove you wrong, Swamiji.
Please do.
I'd love to prove you wrong.
We're waiting, loving the day when you can tell me, hey, you were wrong, and we've come together, and things are progressing in a harmonious way. That's what the world, Vaishnava world, wants. It's
what's so needed, Swamiji. And let me thank you again, Swamiji, for the opportunity, and always good exchanging ideas and entering into dialogue with you, Swamiji. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Garuda Prabhu. So I'll just click this finish button, and you and I will chat for a couple more minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pranams.
Pranams.